Welcome to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life, with psychologist and author of over 75 books, Dr. Barry Weinhold. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life with Dr. Barry Weinhold. My name is Ben Barber. Dr. Weinhold, how are you today?
I'm grateful.
Excellent.
I just have so many things to be grateful for. That's when people ask me, how are you? That's how I respond.
I love it. I agree. There's always so much to be grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, we can always look at the dark side and see all the things that we wish wouldn't happen, but I'm kind of a glass half full guy.
Yeah.
So I always look on the positive side of things, and that's worked for me pretty well through my life, and I always have things that I feel grateful for.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. This is the first time that you and I have spoken to each other like this in 2020.
I know, Ashley, you've been here.
I know. What's new? Well,
I'm doing a presentation on Thursday at a nurses convention here in town, and I'm going to talk about conflict resolution. And what I'm hearing from not only them but other people that are in the healthcare business is there's just a lot of conflict right now. Some of it is with patients, and some of it is with each other. So I asked them to tell me what kind of conflicts they're dealing with, and so they did. And so my presentation is going to be mostly geared to what they told me, and I'm going to suggest some ways they might resolve those conflicts.
I love that. That's amazing. And I would say, do you know anything about conflict resolution? But you literally wrote the book on it. So
yeah.
What do you have for us this month?
Well, we're going to talk about something that's been in the news a lot, and that's mass shootings. And it's a question that no one else has asked. So I'm going to ask it just to throw in some things about what I think is going on with mass shootings. Notice all of them are men, first of all. Now, does that mean that women don't have issues that might cause them to be violent? Well, probably they do, but it seems that men are acting out their violence more than women, for sure. And so I'd like to go through a list of what I think are the reasons why how we raise boys in our society that leads to, or probably contributes to, some of them becoming mass shooters. So that's the topic for today. If I can get through that one, I think we'll be doing fine.
Awesome. Love it. I mean, I hate it. I hate all of it, but
I know it's not the most pleasant topic to be talking about.
No, but it's an important one that we need to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, it's like somehow, and I'm going to be talking about a number of things that are, I think, contributing to that problem. Not just the way we raise boys, but it's also in next week's episode, I'm going to dig into why our systems are broken, which systems are broken that affect this kind of problem, and how to fix them. So that's the topic for March is basically looking at the reality of mass shootings. And the fact is that the murder rate in the US is like 25 times higher than any other country. And all gun-related deaths that happen in this country are 25 times higher that happen in comparable nations. Now, that tells me something about, maybe it's about the gun laws we have here, but I think it's more than that. I think there's at least a number of other factors I want to throw in that I think are important. So
All right. Well, let's dive into it.
Yeah, put up the list of reasons I sent to you to, and the first one is negative limit setting of boys by parents. Now, I kind of think that boys get a worse treatment on limit setting than girls. And I don't know, I don't have a lot of evidence of that, except that as I've studied developmentally, what happens in the toddler time of our upbringing, that's between about 9 months and 3. That's when limit setting is really at its peak for all boys and girls. But in terms of how to really go through that stage of development for boys, uh, a lot of parents make some serious mistakes about how they handle that. If they get too negative, they actually can affect the self-esteem of the boys. And if they get too positive, they can really get to the point where they're not really giving them the realistic picture about what limits, because the natural kind of development of boys and girls is that during that stage is called the narcissistic stage. And they believe that they are the center of everything that happens. Now that has to be tempered during this period of time. And parents don't always do a good job of tempering that. So I have a list of things that I think parents should be doing. So rather than just talk about the negative, uh, I'm going to talk about what I think should happen in that period. And I'm from uh, the audience's perspective, as I go over these, think about from what you know about your parents, do you think they did any of these things when you were a toddler? So that would give you some idea of whether they were able to promote healthy narcissism, or they left you with what is called narcissistic wounds, which in adulthood often are acted out against other people. They're projected on other people. And so narcissistic behavior is usually a defense against some kind of negative feeling we have about ourselves. Sometimes it's shame. So I'm going to read these, and then as I read them, think about, did your parents, you think from what you know of them, do these things for you? Did they react calmly and reassuredly to any of your aggressive impulses? Did they support your attempts to become separate from them and autonomous instead of being threatened by any efforts to be autonomous? Did they allow you to experience and express your natural feelings and urges, such as rage, fear, jealousy, and defiance? These are natural feelings that people have in that time of their life. Did they allow you to develop and follow your natural curiosity safely during this stage, rather than overprotecting you or requiring you to do things just to please them? Were they available both physically and emotionally when you needed them? Did they permit you to express conflicting or ambivalent feelings? And many times during this period, the toddler has a lot of conflicting and ambivalent feelings because they want to be separate, but they also don't want to lose the bonding and attachment they had. So there's an internal kind of conflict that they experience. So did they treat these feelings seriously and with some respect? Did they see and treat you as separate from them in many ways, as someone with their own feelings, their own needs, their own wishes, their own dreams, and their own accomplishments? Did they provide you with twice as many yeses as nos? Now, the research on that is very interesting. At UCLA, they somehow found out that by the time a child reaches the age of 2, he's he or she has heard the word no 200,000 times, which means that they should have received about 400,000 yeses. Now, hardly anyone received that many. And so there's also, that's where the negative parenting has an effect. We are too busy prohibiting our toddler from doing things safely than supporting them in doing things that are really in their natural instinct. And did you childproof the home? Did your parents childproof your home so that you were allowed to explore safely? I remember one parent I visited with a 2-year-old, and this 2-year-old loved to jump off the end of the sofa. And, and so instead of having to say, no, don't do that all the time, they just put a pile of pillows there. And so when the child jumped off the edge of the arm of the sofa, they landed in a pile of pillows. No problem. So did they set appropriate and safe limits for your behavior without use of shame or actual physical punishment? Were they able to set up logical and natural consequences for your behavior? And then last, did they use time in instead of time out to punish you when you got upset and they sent you either to your room or to the corner for a timeout? Timeout turns out to be a very damaging uh, approach to handling any kind of upsetness in your toddler, and isolating them and hoping they'll try to figure out how to re-regulate their emotions just never works. So anyway, that's sort of all the things that I think. Well, actually, there's one more as I go down the list here uh, and look at the other things on the list. That's enough for the first one. Boys are more sensitive than girls. That's the research shows that boys are much more sensitive than girls when they're very young, and eventually they get sort of desensitized. But the research is that young boys are much more sensitive to criticism or any kind of negative reactions to their behavior. There's also a developmental difference between boys and girls. It's never accounted for very much. That the boys, when they're born, are about 6 months developmentally behind girls. Now, that's because in the fetal development, for girls, there's no disruption, but in the fetal development of boys, males, the fetus changes drastically at the 12th week. That's where the male characteristics start to form, the testes and other the male sexual organs start to form. And so this is a disruption in the whole prenatal development of boys that girls don't experience. And so when boys and girls are born, that has to be accounted for. And initially, there's about a 6 months difference developmentally. And as a result, boys have a harder time meeting the social and emotional expectations. Girls usually are able to meet them easily, and boys have a harder time. And then that leads to age grading in school, which I think is probably not necessary. And because the developmental gap between boys and girls widens in school age children, and it doesn't close until about age 16. So for the first 16 years, and of those, of course, probably 10 of them are in school, uh, the boys are behind girls developmentally. And so then the boys tend to have more, they get in trouble more often in school. They're not able to meet the requirements as easily as girls, and it affects their self-esteem. And we also seem to have higher social and economic expectations for boys. Boys are going to be out there making it in the world, and we don't have as high expectations socially or economically as we do for girls. And then boys are bullied in school more than girls are. Now, girls are starting to get bullied cyberly on social media, and they're catching up. But for now, most of the bullying that happens in schools happen to boys, and many of the school shooters were boys who were severely bullied in school, and the anger and the resentment about all that boils up, and they finally go back and shoot up the school. And then the lack of validation by the father. Boys, more than girls, well, boys need it from their fathers. They can get it from their mothers, but they need it from their fathers. What they need is two things. They need a father to say, I'm really proud of you as my son. Not I'm proud about what you've done, but just I'm proud that you're my son. And then they also need some kind of statement of unconditional love, and that I remember my son when he was about 9 or 10. He got in trouble with the family about something he was doing, and I told him, I said, "Listen, I'm going to tell you this, that no, there isn't anything you can do or say that's going to make me stop loving you. You got my love for the rest of your life, regardless of what you do with the rest of your life. And that's unconditional love. And then in my newest book about psychological intelligence, boys tend to have a lower self esteem and therefore lower self psychological intelligence. They don't understand why things are happening to them, and that gets them in trouble. So that to me is really a factor in this whole thing. And then finally, well, the lower self-esteem, number 10, I have an 11th one I didn't add there. I thought of it afterwards, is that we don't have really good rites of passage for boys to manhood. Many cultures do. I mean, the Native Americans, for example, they send their 14, 15-year-olds out into the wilderness alone for 4 or 5 days on a vision quest. And then when they come back from that, they report their experience, and they're lauded as now uh, qualified to manhood in the tribe. Many other cultures, which we would sometimes call primitive cultures, have elaborate rituals for initiating boys into manhood. We don't have hardly any, except maybe to get drunk or high, or steal something from Walmart or something that makes you feel like you're no longer a boy and you're a man. So I think there's a real lack there. And I'm going to talk about how to fix that in the next episode next week. So these are the things that I really feel are kind of unique to how we raise boys in our culture. Now, how much of that does it affects them becoming mass shooters? I'm not sure, but I think it has some effect because I think, I mean, going through 12 years of school, for example, uh, and not being able to meet the standards that are set, it has effect on people's inner inner workings and their self-esteem. And I think uh, uh, there's a lot of pent-up anger, and then if they never got the kind of support they needed from their fathers, that has a big factor. And not all of mass shooters, but many of them I've listened to what their fathers said about them. And it was clear to me that their fathers just simply did not understand what these boys needed. And we have to do a better job of educating fathers. I actually wrote a book about that called The Male Mother, where many of my young clients who became fathers didn't know what their role was. They thought, well, gee, she had the baby and she can take care of him. I'll just keep working and bringing in the money. No, there's many more things that fathers need to do. I in the book I talk about 4 major initiations that fathers have to perform to help raise healthy adult boys or men. So anyway, those are kind of the things that I'm concerned about, and I'm concerned that we don't have a good understanding about way we raise boys that has a long-term effect on them. Now, uh, I'm clinically, I've done that research. I know I work a lot with men. I mean, 90% of my clients are men. So I know a lot about the male psyche, and I see the long-term effects of a lot of things that happen to them as a child. And in fact, one of the things that I'm really up on right now with my male clients is developing a new relationship, an adult relationship with their fathers. And so many of them have this kind of relationship where they're the child and this is the father, and it remains that way when they're 30, 40, 50 years old. That shouldn't be. It should be this way at some point. So I help my clients develop that kind of adult to adult relationship that I think probably that right now might be the main rite of passage for boys to become men is when they can finally have an equal relationship with their fathers and then don't feel like a child every time they talk with their fathers. And that means often they have to take the initiative. They can't sit around and wait for their fathers to figure that out. And so I get my clients to write letters to their fathers and do all kinds of preparations for sitting down with them. And part of the healing of that is to be able to say to your father, this is how your behavior, this is how the fact that you weren't available very much, how this affected me and affected my life. Not that I'm going to blame you for all that, but I just want you to know that this is what I've been dealing with, and I'm not here to put all the blame on you. I've done work now to correct that, but I just want you to know that was happening. And I think being honest with a father and having that kind of honest relationship between a father and son is the first step in building this kind of relationship, which I think is really important. And as I said, it may be the only viable rite of passage from boyhood to manhood anymore. Now, most of my clients are in their 20s. My youngest one was like 18, but most of them are late 20s, and they're still struggling. They're still struggling with self-esteem issues. They're still struggling with not feeling that their life is working the way they want them to work, and so I think that's a big piece. And I notice with some of the men that I work with achieve that, what it does to them, what it does to their whole energy changes when they're able to do that. So that's about it for what I want to talk about this week is the reasons why many of the or most well all of the mass shooters have been men, and why I think the way we raise our boys may have something to do with that.
Well, it's a difficult subject, but definitely something that needs to be talked about. And thank you for doing that work and putting that together, and sharing your decades of experience in this field to gain some insight. What are we talking about next week?
Well, I'm going to talk about broken systems that also contribute to mass shootings. I mean, I think it's a both and. We have to look at how we raise our boys, and then we also have to look at the systems we put them in, and how safe are they? How much are they protected in those systems, and where do the systems fail? Fail not only the boys, but fail us all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much once again, Dr. Weinhold, and everybody listening and watching. Thank you so much. If you want to get in touch with Dr. Weinhold, or you're looking for more resources on this subject or anything else, check out circle.org. You can click the link in the description. And thank you so much. Thank you, Barry. We will see you
Thank
guys next
you.
week.
Right.
For more information, please visit the Colorado Institute for Conflict Resolution and Creative Leadership at CICRCL.org, or click the link in the show notes.